nature journals. They are such a beautiful piece to the homeschool arsenal and sometimes tend to be a little idealistic. So today I'm sharing how to get started using them very simply, and I'll even give you some tools, and I'll even have a free download below to get you started with some nature journal prompts so that you don't lose your mind. I'm Joy, and welcome to my channel. I do videos about nature study, Charlotte Mason homeschooling, and family life. So let's just start with the supply list. So when you are starting with your nature journal, you'll want to get a nice sketchbook, and I prefer one that lays flat, and I'll link to below all of my supplies so you can check that out in the description. We like to start with pencils. Now, the reason I use pencils and I don't start with paints is because I have a bunch of little ones, and the smaller kids tend to get into the paints, and that drives me nuts. And for years, I've been, pregnant or nursing or have a newborn in the home or whatever, and that was just more than I had capacity for. So I found that what I would actually do was use pencils, and that way it would get done. And then the next two things that I really like to include in I'm putting up a picture here, and that is a helix circle maker and a ruler. And the nature journals that we have a pocket in the back, and we actually just keep those in the pocket. And we use those to make our phonology wheels. We use them for the kids to make a line for their words to walk on. When do you do your nature journal entries? So for us, we really like to do them around the table. Again, just because I have so many little ones, we have just not had much success getting them done when we're on a hike. When we go out hiking, that's what we're doing. We're hiking. I will take pictures of any specimens that they would like to draw later, and then they can use my phone to draw from that. Or very often we will come home and I might print off a coloring page of one of the specimens that we saw, such as in our area, there are pink lady slippers that bloom, and you cannot pick them because they're amazing woodland flower, and everyone wants to see them, so you cannot take them home with you, but you can take pictures, but they're very difficult to draw. So getting a coloring page printed off the computer and then setting that out for the student, a really young child will just color it in with the colored pencils and then cut it out and tape or staple that into their nature notebook, and then I'll help them label it. An older student might go directly from my phone and draw from that. Or if they have really a lot of difficulty, they'll use that line drawing from the coloring page to help them get the lines and make the basic shape, because it is so frustrating for me as an adult and for them as a new person trying to draw nature to not be able to make the shape that you see. But that's a skill that you have to learn over time. So we shouldn't expect them to, and they shouldn't expect that from themselves, to have that capability to draw what they see right away. So we need tools and essentially that scaffolding to start to build them in some skills that they can use later down the road. One area that I want to I've had a lot of difficulty with my kids in conveying this, but it is important, and that is treating the books with care, treating our nature journals with care, and also putting our best effort into our nature journals, being neat, not doodling, not rushing through. Now, this takes, I think, more skill and learning on the part of the teacher to coach a child into learning how to have neat work. Now, I have seen lots of families who they're just neater. And my family, we just tend to be a little bit sloppier, but that is consistent with my husband and myself, that we both kind of like to, just let it kind of hang out a little bit. So I just think it's important to learn that, and it can be learned. But again, we don't want to do that at the expense of our relationships with our children. I actually have another video that I explain how I do nature study with small children. I go into that a little bit more deeply, and I will put it here, and I will link to it in the description below. Okay, so now we need to figure out, now we have these amazing journals, we've got some pencils, we're sitting down, what do we draw in our nature journal? We like to start simple and also to think small. A really good place to start is a leaf. Leaves are really helpful. They are satisfying to draw because you can either trace them, especially if one has kind of funky lobes on them, or you can put it next to you and you can draw from that. Another thing that I recommend, and we have done ourselves, is staying close to home to get started with what we want to put in our nature journals. That makes it just completely more accessible. And again, we need to focus so that we can get started with the habit of using our nature journals regularly. So since we were talking about a habit, let's talk about frequency. So in our home, I like to lead my kids to touch their nature journals twice per week. So I have a reading scheduled, a nature study type reading scheduled one day a week. And then the other day we are either adding to the drawing that we did the first day, or we might be adding a poem, we might be adding color to what we already drew. But I'm wanting to lead them to use their journals twice per week. Like that's my requirement, or for my standard for myself. But what I've seen is by leading them to their journals regularly, then they are picking them up on their own outside of school time. If you are having trouble getting nature study into your homeschool routine regularly, and that's something that you really want to do, I have a few different free downloads that you can check out. I've got one on the flower, and I'll link that below. It's 8 lessons on the flower. And I have it's 2 lessons on the butterfly that you can check out as well. And also one about germinating a bean, and you can watch the bean sprout in your window. And I give nature journal prompts with all of those. So I'm going to link to all that stuff below, and you can grab all the free goodies you want. So I'm going to give you a short tour of my nature journal, and then I'm going to show you my kids. Looks like I didn't fill those in, which I can actually do now. So this is the cherry tree that's in our front yard, and we took a full year to study that. And then you'll also see that we studied the moon. And I was able to kind of go backwards when studying this. I would go online if I had missed a few days and then kind of copy that into my notebook. So that just kind of helped us stay on track. Then this comes from my tree book. We learned about leaf shapes. I just enjoyed having, and then I did a full page here of a tree outside, and then I included a poem by Joyce Kilmer. These are just some ideas of things that you can draw. And then I drew this, I traced this leaf and started to draw in the details from our cherry tree. And I actually copied this from Nature Anatomy, I believe is the book I copied that from. Then we've got tree shapes, and I started to copy this poem by George MacDonald. And actually some of this art as well was something I looked at in the book. Then we've got the moon phases. I did that again, but just to explain and label. And then my kids all copied this from my book. This is all from my Stars and Sky Nature Study Hacking book as far as the models go that we used to copy into our books. And then this is the planets. We were learning the solar system. This was the sun. As we were learning about the sun, we had watched a video about the sun, and then we all drew in our picture a narration. We drew in our nature journals a narration from the video. And we got to see a solar eclipse, but we were also learning about lunar eclipses. So this was kind of fun when we learned that. This is more of the constellations we were learning. This is from a plant called the lily magnolia that grows in our neighborhood. And this is my entry from when we did our black bean germination. And then we grew pumpkins, and this is my pumpkin thing. And then just recently I did this one. This was a woodpecker that I saw outside my window in the middle of winter. See, I kind of explained that there. I like to include the Latin name if I can, just because I'm wanting to start to get more familiar with the Latin. Oh, and this was a branch my kids found from a loblolly pine that grows in our neighborhood. We got to go on a hike, and then we've been starting to experiment with watercolors. And this particular book does not have watercolor paper, and I did this on watercolor, and then I stapled it into my journal. And then in the back, I have what's called a perpetual journal. And I've done this in all my kids' journals as well, so that they can start. Sometimes we'll have like a specific topic that we're studying, and then we find something that we want to include in the journal. We want a place for it. So this, you'll see I've sectioned off by month. Some people will make their entire journal a perpetual journal, and they'll label it based on the weeks of the year. But that's too much for me right now. So this was February, the daffodil. See, sometimes I'm able to go back and color them in. And I have been using pencil to color them in. So this was March, and I'll write down the date that I've seen one of them. This is the shamrock or wood sorrel, and this actually grows in our yard. And we had a nest last year. So, and again, I used books. This one is from Wildflower Folklore by Laura C. Martin. And this one, I believe, is from the Peterson Field Guide coloring books. I like to look up the bird or whatever I've seen. And I'm actually in the process right now of drawing this wisteria. So I just haven't gotten to that yet. Then I saw, this was the tree swallows that we got to see. This was a world loose strife that I remember seeing on a hike. Just very simple. I like to draw in pencil and then go back over with pen. Some people, you know, they just want to do pen, or some people just keep it in pencil. It's really up to you. It's your journal. You're able to make it how you want. And then there's my sunflower. We grew sunflowers last year. August was hot. September we found some berries. We found this beautiful aster, Christmas daisy, purple aster growing in our neighborhood. Most of the stuff I'm seeing is from our neighborhood. We do go on daily walks. And then I enjoy including quotes and poems, or sometimes I'll just write about what we did. And okay, so now I'm going to get one of my kids' journals so that you can see. Now, he actually just got this one. He is 5 years old. And this is my painting that he wanted to include. I just let him include that. So he wanted to, we have roses outside. So he wanted to draw a picture of the roses. And so I pulled out a book, and then he was able to copy this from the book. And then these are plants that are growing in our yard. We need to label that. He was cutting out these shapes of animals and asked if he could include them in his journal. And yes, I said, let's just write the date and let's write the name. So that was fun. And then we did a drawing. This was from a lesson that we were doing. This is a daisy. We had found a bunch on the just when we were driving around. And Then I taught them about how a daisy is actually a compound flower. Each of these individual petals and each of the little dots in the middle are all called, they're individual florets. They have a full reproductive system in each one. So that's how they create the seeds. And then he wanted to draw the stars and the comets, and he was copying from something. So I was just so pleased. I told him he could, as long as he draws animals or plants, I'm fine with this. So he copied this. This is from the book, How to Draw Almost Anything, which is a really great book for children to get started with, just drawing shapes. And there he's got an elephant. So, and he's brand new at this. All right, and this is my first grader. Let's see here. Now, he was not a part of our homeschool requirements when we were doing the tree and such, but we're going to do that again this year. So this is his son that he enjoyed doing. And then he drew that lunar eclipse model as well. So in our home, we are just really trying to focus on being neater, but it's a journey. It's not like all of a sudden, my kids are going to be neat. I have to teach that in my children. Some families, they just know how to do that. Okay, this was from a lesson on pollination. I wrote that for him, and then he's drawing what we read about. Not sure what was going on here. Just decided he's going to write a fox, I guess. Let's see what else. Okay, this was from a lesson that we did in our co-op. This is a red clover that we did. I like to try to teach them to fill in the next page, but sometimes they skip. This is poke salad. This actually is a pretty good representation of what it is. And then we were doing weather, and I told them to draw. We had a snow day here, so draw a picture from the snow day. So that was really fun. So hopefully this will just give you some ideas. Okay, and then this was, I would call this collaborative art. So he painted the trillium that I had painted, and then he wanted my help drawing the outline. So that just kind of, sometimes they just need a little bit of help from mom to make it look right. Okay, and then the little brown bat, he loves bats. Let's see what he's got back here. So I'm not exactly sure what this is. Something in November. Oh, the Douglas fir. Yeah, we had these cool fir tree. Well, this was from our Christmas tree that he drew. Are you currently doing nature journals with your children? I would love to hear your stories, and if you could leave me a comment below and let me know what works for you, how you're getting it done, and if not, let's talk about it. Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.